Please join me in prayer. God of incarnation, we ask that you once again take the Word and transform it into a living and breathing reality we can all together experience, feel, hear, and touch. Be present here in this space, in these words, God, for if you are present here, then nothing else will matter. But if you are not present here, then nothing else will matter. In the name of our God, who is three and yet is one. Amen. A few weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. for about 36 hours for a conference with the think tank Faith and Public Life. A group of CBF Baptist pastors were flown up to talk about the current election and the issue of the loss of civility in politics. We talked about how this current election is a lot like if you fall and if you think maybe you've sprained your wrist, so you go to the ER and the doctor comes out and he says, well, the good news is your wrist is not broken, it's sprained a little bit, but here's the problem. I see all sorts of things on the x-ray that make me nervous. This election has revealed to us how truly sick and broken we are as a country, despite our long ignoring that. We talked as pastors about how the truth is that our reckoning as a country is not going to happen on Tuesday, November 8th, on Election Day, but is going to happen on Wednesday, November 9th, when all the racism, all the sexism, and all the other isms that have been unleashed in this election can't be put back in a box. And we have to deal with the real issues that this election cycle has brought forth, and that goes way beyond a Republican versus Democrat presidential election. The real work of the church this political season will begin that Wednesday, and we better be ready, because it's not going to be easy work to see how incredibly lost we really are as a country. It was 36 hours of pretty intense meetings. So when Tuesday noon came and the meetings ended, we had a few hours before we had to catch our flight. So some of us decided that after all this heavy discussion, we deserved a chance to be tourists in our nation's capital. We all said that we wanted to go see the White House so that we could take pictures of it to show our kids. But the truth is, we just wanted to see the White House. So we asked Stephen Reeves, he had another meeting, so he said, Stephen, can you point us to the White House? And he said, oh, it's really easy. It's just a few blocks that way, and pointed in its general direction. And he promised us that it would be a simple trip. A block in, we were all already lost. So we pulled out our iPhones and we typed in the White House and we started looking to see where we were. This large huddle of Baptist pastors, most of whom were wearing the unofficial uniform of Baptist pastors, which is blazers and blue jeans. It's kind of like the mullet for Baptist pastors. It's both business and it's casual. And so like 6 of them were wearing that. I was a little more casual in shorts and t-shirt, but we're all together with our rolling suitcases and our baggage, and we all have our phones. We are blocking traffic, trying to figure out which way to go. You hear a few people saying, oh, I think it's that way. Somebody else says, no, my phone says that it's right ahead. We all had an opinion until finally somebody looked up from their phones and they laughed and they said, there it is. It's right across the park. It was within eyesight. It just was not yet on our mobile screens. Standing there almost directly in front of it, but not looking up, but looking down. Forgetting to look up, which isn't a bad parable for our faith today. These two parables that Jesus shares with us this morning, it's pretty easy for us to hear them as a religious community, because it was to a religious community that Jesus addressed these parables. These aren't Billy Graham evangelism crusade parables. These stories are told to the religious community, to those who thought they had it all together. Which raises the question for us, how do we get back to that place where we can hear these stories when most of us have forgotten what it's like to be lost and we consider ourselves the found? You see, one of the problems when it comes to these parables is that being lost is the new lost art. And a great deal of it has to do with our iPhones, those small computers that we all carry in our pockets. You do realize that even if you don't have the latest and greatest iPhone, the one that you have with you still has more computer power and abilities than all of NASA had when they landed the first man on the moon. And yet what we do with those is we take selfies. We might have reached the turning point of evolution. Our iPhones, they keep us from getting lost, because if we do get lost, all we have to do is push a button and we are findable. There are countless apps that will locate us and get us to where we need to be, and they do so by making us the very center of our world. We are the first generation that won't need true north or a compass, because we ourselves will be true north. We don't get physically lost anymore. And as I thought about it, I'm not so sure we get spiritually lost either. You see, we've made lost and found categories and not the very journey of our faith. Lost has become for us those other people. You know, the ones who need Jesus. The ones we talk about at prayer meeting. The ones we don't want our kids hanging out with. The ones who are the before picture of faith. They're the wretches from Amazing Grace who are still lost and need to be found. But us? Well, we're the found. We're the redeemed. We are the after picture of faith. In Amazing Grace, we feel like we've been there for 10,000 years. The lost are the others. The found are us. And you see what that does to us? It's that whole iPhone thing again, where it puts us as the center of the world. We're the finders. The story suddenly revolves all around us. And nothing could be further from the truth. Because the parables about getting lost are given to the religious community who think they're the found group. You see, Jesus knew that lost and found was a process and not a category. Because our God does not think in terms of category, but in terms of process, a process of continual redemption. And we don't get to be the ones doing the finding. We don't get to be the center of the story, because thank God that role is already taken. And we have a God who plays that role perfectly, which is really good news, because the truth is we're really good at playing the lost role. We're stubborn. We choose our own way. We are fearful, and we always run towards safety and comfort. We have short and limited vision, and we seek temporary relief and pleasures. We have spiritual ADD, and we're constantly looking for the new thing to entertain us, to distract us. We plan things out perfectly, and when they don't work out, we look up and we don't know where we are anymore. We mess things up. We break things. We're really good at getting lost. What we're not good at is admitting it, confessing it. We do everything we can to avoid admitting how lost we really are. For me, one of the spiritual gauges of my life is my to-do list. When my to-do list is obscenely long, it means that something is off in my spiritual life. However, instead of admitting that, instead of confessing that, instead I start trying to fix things. I look for things that are broken and I make a long list of how I'm going to fix them, because it's easier for me to do that than it is to admit I'm broken. I'm lost. I need some help. I don't know how to admit my lostness. And we all have different ways that we cope. For some of us, we stay busy. For others, we get involved in other issues. Some of us simply shut down and take a nap. Others ignore it and hope it will go away. Others are blind to it. When the truth is, all our God needs is us to confess it, to say, I'm lost. Help me find my way home. That's why our psalm for today is so important. It's Psalm 51, which is labeled in our Bibles as a psalm of David, when the prophet Nathan came to him after David had committed adultery with Bathsheba. This is a psalm of being lost. David has done everything wrong he could. He's been in the wrong places. He's issued the wrong commands. He's been with the wrong woman. David has lied. David has cheated. David has abused his own power to have sex with a woman, which is assault. David has murdered her husband. David's tried to get out of it. David's played the hero and David's played the victim. And David is lost. And then the prophet Nathan comes to him. And Nathan says, David, I've got a story to tell you. There were once two neighbors. And one of the neighbors had a bunch of sheep, tons of sheep. The other neighbor only had one sheep, but he loved that sheep like a child. One night, the neighbor with all the sheep had unexpected company. He opened the door, invited them in, said, I can't wait to serve you a meal. So he ran outside, and after looking over his own sheep, he reached over the fence and decided his neighbors looked better. So he slaughtered it and prepared it for dinner. What do you think about that, King David? And David replies quickly, the man who did that should be killed. Do you see how lostness can blind you? And after what I think had to be a moment of silence, Nathan, with great fear and trembling, takes his finger and points to him and says, David, you are that man. You're so lost. And out of that comes one of the most honest prayers we have in Scripture, where King David cries out, I'm lost. Find me, God. Bring me home. All David needed was a story. And maybe that's all we need this morning as well. Some stories to remind us of who we are. Maybe we need a story of a foolish shepherd who had 100 sheep, which is a pretty big flock of sheep. And at the end of the day, he gathers them all together and he counts them 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And each count, he comes up with 99 sheep, and they're supposed to be 100. Doesn't seem like a huge deal. That's really not bad, 99 out of 100. But for him, it's not complete. So he leaves the 99 and he goes looking for the one, which he finds and he carries home. And then when he gets home, he throws a huge celebration, because what was once lost is now found. The flock is complete. Or the story of the widow and her coin. You see, this widow, she had 10 silver coins, and that was all she had to her name. And she was really frugal, and she was tight. She counted her coins all the time, and one day she goes to the mantle. And she counts 1, 2. She gets to 9, and then she starts over. There is a coin missing. She begins to turn the house over and over and over. She looks behind the couch, under the couch, in every nook and cranny she can find. She even goes up to the attic. She can't find the coin anywhere. But as she's sitting there, she remembers one spot she hasn't looked, in the back of the pantry. Surely it wouldn't be there, but she goes to look, and there it is. The coin is found, and she's ecstatic. In fact, she is so excited that she calls all her neighbors over and she tells them the whole story, because obviously they are not losing any sleep over the lost coin. And she has a party to celebrate the coin's return. Things are complete. And maybe Jesus tells us these parables to remind us of the joy of being found, to help us to own being lost. Because it's when we're truly lost and we can admit it, it's then we can be found. And make sure to note in these parables, neither the sheep or the coin repent. Neither the sheep or the coin do anything right, actually. All they do is get found. They are lost and they are found. And that is the gospel. Since we've forgotten how to get lost, maybe it's time we remind ourselves of the rules of being lost. According to the U.S. Forest and National Parks, here's what you do when you're lost. First, stop. Sit down. Try to figure out where you are. Use your head, not your legs, to find you. Second, if you are caught in a storm, stop and make camp immediately. Build a fire in a safe place and gather supplies to stay there until the storm is over. Third, don't wander about. And if you do wander about, only travel downhill, never uphill. Fourth, if you're injured, make a fire and send out big smoke signals. Fifth, don't yell, don't run, don't worry, and don't quit. That sounds like gospel to me this morning. When you're lost, go slower, not faster. In fact, when you're lost, stop whatever it is that you're doing and simply wait to be found, because the gospel is God is looking for you. The gospel is that someone out there is looking to save you, and that salvation is not about rescue as much as it is an invitation to an eternal celebration of love, which is not complete until every one of us are in attendance. You see, in the stories, we can't be the ones doing the finding, because that's God's role. God is the one who, in this constant game of hide and seek that we play, God does the seeking, God does the finding, God does the restoring, and according to Jesus, that is God's deepest joy. And maybe that's why we don't quite understand the Greek concept of salvation. You know, the Greek word for salvation is really hard for us to get because it exists in 3 tenses, and we don't have any word like this in our language. It transcends all understandings of verbs and tenses, because what it really means is this: I was saved, I am being saved, and I will be saved. Saved is a process, not an event, just like being lost and found, and lost, and found, and lost, and found. So may we understand these parables today for what they truly are: an invitation for each of us to be found. And may we see ourselves for who we truly are: lost, and in need of being found. And may we experience again the joy of being found by a God who loves nothing more than the celebration of welcoming us back home. May we be found by the wild one who wants to lead us all home.